In C#, a method is simply a code block that executes a series of statements. Now you've already familiar with one method, and that's the main method. This is where code execution begins. So this method heading static, that's a reserved keyword that means that this method belongs to the class itself and is not associated with an instance of this class. That will make more sense once you learn about user-defined classes and object-oriented programming. But in this lesson, all of our methods are going to have this static keyword at the beginning. And then the second word, void, that you've seen here in the main method means that this main method isn't going to return a value. We're going to create some user-defined methods that return values and some that don't. So we'll actually replace this word void with a data type or a variable type if we are returning something, followed by the name of the method, which is followed by an opening and a closing parentheses. And if a method has parameters going into it, those parameters are going to be inside of the parentheses. So the first method we want to create is a method that will change the console colors. Right now the only code in my main method, these are all just comments, is console.readKey. So when I run this, I have a black console window, there's my blinking cursor, and when I press any key like the space bar, that goes away. And so this closing curly brace right here, you can see it's highlighted in blue. That means this one's highlighted in blue, so that's its associating opening curly brace. So everything in here is in the main method, and we can use this plus sign here to expand and contract that main method. And so all that code in there belongs to the main method. And since we're talking about creating our own methods, we are going to do that outside of the main method. One mistake I see students doing often when they first create their first method is creating a new method here. That's a mistake because you can't create a method inside of a method. That method needs to be created outside of other methods. So right here, I'm going to create a new method. It's static because this method belongs to the class, not an instance of the class. And void, meaning this method does not need to return anything. That'll make more sense once you see a method that does return something. And then the name of my method. And we always use Pascal case when we name our methods. And the names of our methods should have a verb in them because methods do something. Methods do something. And so the verb here is that word change. Change console colors. That means we're doing something. And I need an opening and a closing parentheses. There aren't going to be any parameters or arguments going into this method. One thing to note, with your method headings, you should not end your method headings or your method definitions with a semicolon. Do not do that. It's one of the few places where a line of code will not end in a semicolon, method headings. Also, up here, notice that my class declaration, up here, no semicolon. And my namespace definition, no semicolon. A good rule of thumb is if the following line of code is an opening curly brace, then the line before it should not have a semicolon. Here's an opening curly brace, the line before it should not have a semicolon. Here's an opening curly brace, the line before it should not have a semicolon. Same here. And so inside of these curly braces are all of the code that's going to run when we call this change console colors method. And so I just want to set this console, set those colors opposite from black and white to white and black. So console.background color, and set that equal to console color .white. So now our console is going to have a white background and foreground color. The foreground color is the text color, and so I want black text. Console color.black. Sorry, IntelliSense is hiding my typing. And then if all we did was that, we're not going to be very happy because it looks exactly the same. We need to clear the console. And when we clear the console, it's going to set the entire console and not just all future text to that black and white that we set. So now when we run this, we get that white console. Oops, we don't get it because I haven't called the method yet. I apologize. That was an illustration. So we defined this method here, but all that gets run right now when we run our program is the main method. Okay, so the main method goes from here to here. These 3 lines of code are not getting run because I haven't called the method. To call a method is very simple. I just need to type in the name of my method followed by opening and closing parentheses, just like that. So now when the main method runs, this line of code gets run. It says, oh, I need to go down here to this change console colors method and run these lines of code, and then go back up here and continue execution in the main method. So now I promise you will see a white console. There it is. All right, so that was a pretty simple method. It did something, it changed the console colors, it didn't return something, and we didn't have to pass in any parameters. All right, I want to declare a variable for my name. So string name equals Louis Lumberjack, our mascot. And then I want to call a method that displays text in the console. Now I haven't written that method yet. Let's write that method first, and then we'll call it. So I want to create a new method, and this method is also going to be static, meaning it belongs to the class. Void, meaning it's not going to return anything. But we need a name for this method. I will call this method display text. And the argument, or the parameter that I want to give to this method, is a string parameter, because I want to pass in a string, and I want to call this text to display. So when I call this method, I need to give it an argument. I need to give it a string argument, and then the body of this method is going to do something with this string argument. This method's just going to be a single line of code. It's going to be a console.writeLine, and what we're going to write to the console is text to display. So when I call this method, I'm going to pass in a parameter. That parameter is going to end up going here in this console.writeLine, and we will see that text print to the console. And so the first time I want to call this method, I want to call it with my name as the argument. So display text, there's the name of my method. My method is in Pascal case, capital D and capital T. And display, there's my verb. I should always have a verb in my method names. And I want to pass in name. Okay. So if I run this, I will see Louis Lumberjack in the console. I don't need to pass in a variable. I could pass in something that I type right into this method, as long as it's a string. So I can type in, we love C# programming. Okay. And so I'm calling this same method twice. And the second time I'm passing in this string. So the benefit of methods is that we can call them multiple times, passing them multiple parameters, instead of having to recode this method for each time we want to call it. I just needed to define the method once, and then I can call it as many times as I want. So let's run this and see our 2 sentences there on our nice white console. That's looking good. All right, so this display text method takes in a parameter, but it doesn't have a return type. Our return type is still void. So let's now create a method that will calculate the area of a rectangle. All right, that's a simple calculation, right? Length times width. And so I want to create a method that will do that for me, and I can pass in those parameters. So let's first create my method. It's going to be a static method because it belongs to the class, not an instance of the class. And then I am not going to use the keyword void this time because this is going to return a value. Let's return a double. Now, if I asked you, give me the area of a rectangle, you would ask me two things. You'd say, wait a second, I need to know the length and I need to know the width. Once you have that information, you're going to perform the math, and then you're going to say to me, oh, the answer is, it's 21 square feet, or whatever the math you did is. So that answer to me, there are 21 square feet in the rectangle, based on the parameters you gave me, that is the double we're referring to here, the return type, the answer of our method. What is our method returning? And I want to call this method calculate rectangle area. And this is a method, so I use Pascal case, capital C, capital R, capital A, and there's a verb in my method. That's the word calculate. And then what do I need in order to calculate a rectangle area? Well, I need a length and I need a width. Only two things I need. So this method heading is a little more complex than these other two method headings. This one, no parameters, no return type. This method has one parameter, but no return type. This method has two parameters and a return type of double. So then I have my opening and closing curly braces, so the body of my method fits in here. And whenever you have a return type in your method heading, that means that you need to end your method with the keyword return. And this is a really simple method. I just can do it all in one line of code. Return length times width. So that's going to take these two values that get passed in from the call, multiply them together, and return it. And so this calculation is going to get returned as a double to my calling method. And so I'm going to first declare a variable for rectangle area and then call that method I just created down here. So rectangle area, this will be a double variable called rectangle area, and it doesn't have a value yet, but I'm going to set its value here. Okay, and then what did I call my method? I called my method calculate rectangle area, and I need to pass it two arguments. So let's calculate the area of a rectangle that is 20 long by 3 wide. So a long rectangle, and so 20 times 3, this is going to calculate to 60. And then display the area of the rectangle on the console. I could do something like this. Your rectangle is token 0 square feet. And in token 0, I want to put rectangle area. Good. So let's run this and see how that looks. Oh, all right, our method got called correctly. Your rectangle is 60 square feet. That math did right. We called our method. The most common mistake that probably most first-time C# programmers do is they don't understand that methods can be used to set the values of variables. I see this very frequently. And I see the code on the student's screen, and they say, well, yeah, sure, I'm calculating the rectangle area right here. Well, yes, they are, but they're not doing anything with the answer. And so what do we need to do with this answer? We probably want to do something with it. Do we want to display it in the console? Do we want to store it to a variable? Do we want to use it as an argument for some other method? And so my recommendation is, if you see a return type in your method, okay? If you see a return type in your method by this word here not being void and your method ending with this keyword return, that probably means that when you call your method, you need to set the result of this method equal to something. And that is this rectangle area variable that I declared above. Okay? And so again, these are methods, so I can run them multiple times. So I'm going to take these, this line of code, and this line of code, and I'm going to show you how I can calculate the areas of multiple rectangles. Alright, so say this one's 50 by 5, this one's 120 by 3, this one's 20 by 35, this one's 21 by 31. Okay, so I'm calculating a lot of different rectangle areas and displaying those on the console. See that? One method can be called multiple times with different parameters and give us different results. So that's the benefit of methods. And remember, I just want to go through the method heading one more time. The first word static, that means it belongs to the class. It's not associated with an instance of the object. The second keyword void means that this method is not going to return any value, as opposed to if we had double here or int here or string here. That means that this method is going to return a value. Followed by the name of our method, which should be in Pascal case and should contain a verb. Finally, followed by an opening and a closing parentheses, and if you are passing in any arguments or parameters into the method, that's where those go. And we need to specify those with a data type. Another mistake that students make is, yeah, they understand that a data type needs to go in here, but then they make the mistake when they are calling the method. Let's get rid of all these excess ones here. When they're calling the method, they think they need to do this, because they see double length here and double width here. So they think, oh, when I'm calling the method, I need to specify that's a double and that's a double. No, no, no. We don't need that. The only place we need to specify that these parameters are doubles is down here in the method heading, not when the method gets called.